Welcome to Modern Business Life. Real conversations with the leaders, operators, and innovators shaping the way business gets done. No fluff, no filter. Just the stuff you wish people weren't scared to say out loud. Interested in being a guest? Email us at guest@modernbusiness.life. On with the pod.
Welcome to today's podcast. Today's guest is one of the more unusual origin stories I've come across. He didn't say a single word till he was 4 years old. Doctors told his parents he might never talk. Then one morning at breakfast, he asked his mom to pass the jelly. She fainted, and he apparently went right back to eating. He studied linguistics and economics at Dartmouth because he liked understanding how systems fit together. He went to Tuck for his MBA and has spent his career at the intersection of data, operations, and revenue. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at QuotaPath, a compensation plan platform for sales teams, where he built the RevOps function from scratch, expanded into leading sales and marketing, and was just named Pavilion's Startup CRO of the Year. His team has hit 100% quota attainment in 8 of the past 9 quarters. He's also published 2 New York Times crosswords. Ryan Milligan, welcome to the pod.
Colin, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. Sales data, marketing data, conversion data, near and dear to my heart and most of the people listening. I just want to ask, you guys collect an enormous amount of data about rep performance, quota attainment, compensation. How do you all use that same data intelligence in your own sales and revenue functions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for those who aren't as familiar, QuotaPath helps you use your comp plan to drive your sellers to close better revenue for the business. And so where we uniquely sit is reps are logging into QuotaPath all the time, forecasting how much am I going to earn for this 1 year single product deal versus this 3-year multi-product deal, and basically allowing you to use that comp plan that you built so brilliantly to actually drive like the right behavior from your team on top of saving you time calculating and paying commissions. And so to your point, we have a lot of data in our system, and a lot of what we think about and use within our own sales motion is 2 things. One is running a lean team from the sales side. So, traditional wisdom was, hey, you need 80% quota coverage on a sale, like between your revenue number and your quota in the field in order to be successful. We've pushed against that mentality based on a lot of the data we're seeing within our own customer base, and typically are running anywhere 90, 95, even 100% required attainment to hit our revenue number. What we find is that leaner teams with higher numbers on a per person basis or higher requirements tend to perform better because they actually truly see a path to hitting their number. And the assumption is not 80%. The assumption is 100%. Everyone's going to make their money. And the second thing is what we see top performing orgs do have simpler, more dramatic compensation plans. So a lot of orgs, in a legacy world will say, I'll pay you 10% base rate. I'll pay you an extra 1% on a 2-year deal and another extra 1% on multi-product, another extra 1% on cash up front. And that many kickers dilutes the power of the kicker. So what we've seen is we've tried to make a shift over the past couple of years to longer, more durable ICP revenue. And so those are the 2 things that we're using to motivate our team are longer term contracts and coming from ICP customers. And so being able to pick 2 things and accelerate the rate 40, 50% versus 5 things that each accelerate the rate 10%, the rep knows what she needs to focus on and has led to great outcomes in terms of shifting the shape of our revenue.
That makes a lot of sense and reminds me back in the prehistoric age when I worked at Dell. It was in the golden age of spiffs, and I remember one quarter I made more commission attaching SanDisk 1 gigabyte thumb drives as a spiff. I got $1 per thumb drive added. Made more on that than I did on the actual selling of Dell's products, which
Sure.
Pretty soon they modified that. But something that I thought about, and I think you've written about, is oftentimes commission plans are given to the reps. The rep signs a commission plan, makes a mental note, I'm getting 5% with a 2% kicker, and never revisits the plan during the quarter, during the year, maybe even during their entire employment. And I know you've written a bit about plans sitting dormant after they've been distributed. Do you have a systematic way of like knowing how a team can use the commission plan to drive that behavior more actively than just set it and forget it?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's the fundamental problem. It's the fundamental problem our product solves. So the way that our product works is that you build the logic of your compensation plan in QuotaPath. It is real-time syncing from your CRM, all the deals that have closed already, but then also all the deals that are in pipeline. And so in a last-in model, a rep can say, hey, if I close this deal, the Jones deal, how much money am I going to make if that deal closes in its current state? Then they can modify the parameters of that deal. Okay, this was a 1 year multi-product or 1 year single product deal for 15K. If I turn this into a 2 year multi-product deal, but I drop the price to 12K, I actually might make more money for a lower ARR, higher value deal for the business because the accelerators offset the discount, right? So it's that comp plan driving the rep to change their behavior to make them more money because the comp plan is implicitly tied to the target revenue outcomes for the business. Hey, we have to shift our revenue more to the mid-market, longer term, multiple products, whatever the like requirements of the business are. So it's one of the major problems that we tend to solve. And what we find really important is you're not just calculating commissions, you're driving humans to change their behavior, to close more revenue that's better for their wallet. And you better hope and model and put together that them earning more money is because they're doing things that are implicitly better for your business. And that's like the whole narrative of our business.
So that's fascinating because where I wanted to go is like, what's the relationship between compensation design, commission plan design, and forecast accuracy? Because what you just said is about the rep behavior and the business directing a rep's behavior that should presumably be good for the business.
Yeah.
But also like that plan is also going to factor into like the accuracy of a forecast, which is how many businesses make future plans. It's not on what was attained, it's what's on the forecasted. What's the through line there?
Well, one of the constant narratives is that reps hate updating CRM, right? And they hate, moving deals into different stages and changing the parameters of them. One way to make them hate that less is if they know the impact of where that deal sits on their potential to earn. So if you shift it from, okay, you have to update the CRM in order to like submit a forecast to your leader, you shift it from that to you should update your forecast to move your deals at certain stages so you can see and predict how much money you're going to make this quarter. You'll bet you'll get a lot more reps like making that change. And so we see a lot of our customers, one of the byproducts of using a tool like QuotaPath is like much higher CRM adoption and cleanliness because they have a tool now that they can play those what if scenarios and plan for that trip to Greece and say, okay, if these 3 deals go this way, I get to go to Greece, right? So like that is the value of that from a forecasting perspective. And then you as a leader are able to say, okay, these are the mechanics of how these deals interact and what our overall forecast accuracy could look like.
You saying that, I've been essentially in the chair to be your ICP at least 4 times, maybe 5. And for somebody from QuotaPath to walk in and say, if you buy our product, your reps will use Salesforce more accurately, sold. Like that alone, everything else is just gravy. 8 out of 9 quarters of 100% quota attainment for the team. If we want to talk about actual sales activity, that is a culture, not a coincidence. What do you think you as a leader and your team is doing that many sales leaders skip or undervalue?
So a couple things. I think the first has been we've laid out the math very clearly as to how a person is to hit their number and why they should expect to hit their number. And so if you lead with the math of, okay, you have an 150K quarterly quota at a 15K average contract value, that means you have to close 10 deals. To close 10 deals, every deal takes 3 meetings in this stage. You got to run 30 of these meetings, which means you have to have 90 demos. And if you can kind of like break that down for them, and then here's why we think you can get there, that allows the rep to go in confident and say, okay, I have this pool of deals I'm going to work this quarter, and this is the close rate that's expected, and here's the average contract value, and here's my, to put it so punnily, path to quota, right? And so like, if you can lay out for them in very specific terms how they get to their number, that becomes really, really powerful from a motivation perspective. The second piece is definitely the way that the comp plan works and the visibility in the plan. And, we dog food our own product all the time, obviously. And so there's certain value in a rep being able to see how she makes her number and what she should change about certain deals she's working to drive the right behavior. And then the third to me is we have adopted AI very dramatically in our go-to-market process, specifically around making our reps more efficient. So the biggest metric that I look at as a revenue leader is the close one ARR per rep. And we've grown that about 1.7x in the past 18 months. And really the function of that is we have used AI to tackle a lot of the very manual problems in a sales process that they're spending a lot of time on, building proof of concepts, updating CRM, moving deals to certain stages, building business cases, whatever is the thing that a rep is doing that is not uniquely human and uniquely selling. We have said, how do I build an agent to solve that problem for them, and then tick down the list. And so that has allowed us to focus our reps' time much more on the actual human unique activity, which has led to burst in win rate and ramping reps much faster and all the stuff that gets a team member to hit their number.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The idea of like showing very prescriptively how you can hit your number. It's been my experience that a lot of times reps start the quarter, the month, the year, not in a state of hopelessness, but in a state of, oh man, there's no way. In fact, when some of the larger orgs I've worked with, it's pretty common that the day that quotas were passed out, everybody'd be in a bad mood because everybody thought their quota was too high. I mean, that's pretty traditional. And so I like the idea of actually creating, and again, not to lean too far into the puns, but to create an actual pathway that shows, look, this is, if you do the work and you do the steps, that there are a number of lead indicators that will help you get to the quota. Because far too often, quota measurement attainment is a lag indicator. What have I sold, not what have I done? Do you think that's the sort of culture that can be imparted on really any sales team, that you can identify lead indicators and that it just becomes a game of math? You do X, Y, and Z with the right frequency and in the right timelines, and you can expect a certain outcome?
100%. I mean, selling is inherently a mathematical exercise. Like, yes, there's the art of selling, there's the negotiation process, there's the creating like unique value. There's a lot of stuff that is uniquely human in selling, but it is a throughput math problem, right? In order to close this many new customers at this value, I need to run this many meetings with, this many people, then I need to outbound to this many people with this much reply rate, right? It is a math funnel mechanics problem. And I think if you're not walking through the mechanics of that funnel with a rep, telling them how exactly they're going to hit their number, you're failing the rep. And then you're leading them to hopecast or spiral or do whatever humans innately do when they feel like they don't actually have a plan. And so we start every quarter to say, hey, this is your number, and this is why you're going to hit this number. Here's the amount of pipeline you're carrying in from last quarter. Here's how much of that you have to close. Here's the pipeline that you're going to create this quarter. Here's how much you have in certain stages. For our SMB sellers, they're closing 70 to 80% of the deals they're closing, they're creating and closing in that quarter, right? And so for them, it's like, here's how much pipeline you have to create, here's the carryover, and here's like the funnel mechanics of how this is going to work. And so yeah, I think it's required for a modern GTM leader for sure.
When you're building sales teams, when you're hiring sales reps, and I know you hired someone, QuotaPath was smaller and your role and responsibility were different. You're hiring some now as the business has grown and your roles and responsibilities are different. What are some of the common threads that or traits that you are looking for in a sales maker candidate? And what are some of the things where you're like, you know what, that may not be a bright red flag, but it's certainly a light red flag?
Yeah, for sure. Primary things we're looking for, intellectual curiosity is huge to me. People, at a company of our stage, you have to be genuinely curious, asking questions, like understanding why things work. And with comp plans in particular, right, I have to take your bespoke comp plan with your bespoke source of data and how you've put your data together and solve that logic puzzle. How am I going to take your comp plan and put it into QuotaPath? How am I going to take your unique CRM and ERP data and get that into QuotaPath? A proof of concept is kind of like a logic puzzle. And so you have to be innately curious. And for us, you have to be mathematically and or technically minded to understand how these different CRM systems like integrate with one another and integrate into our system, how the data is joined, and then the logic of how comp plans work. And so I tend to really like people who are constantly building in AI tools, playing around, like genuinely intellectually curious. I really listen to the questions that they ask me. Questions more so like more advanced than what's the culture like in QuotaPath. Like I like specific, hey, you mentioned you're trying to move into the upper mid-market. How do you think about making that change? What has to change about your sales philosophy, whatever. And then on the red flag side, the lack of curiosity is naturally a very big one. The other one is like all lone wolf mentality stuff really is not a great fit for me. We have a system. We have a pretty rigorous, specific system about how we move people through our sales process. And that is by design because of how technically and quantitatively challenging our sale is, right? Every single customer is unique in their own way. They want to compensate people uniquely and or their data is unique. And so if you're going to go try to do a bunch of this like lone wolf stuff, you're not going to fit in very well here. And so if people can't explain to me, here's the system that I applied to hit my number, that's a big red flag for me.
Got it. You mentioned just now proofs of concept, and a lot of times with software pilots, proofs of concept by whatever name it is, where it's like you get to try the thing like you live in the house. It's not just a demo. Do you and your team, do you see those? Is that a closing tool that you put late in the sales cycle to get a deal over the line? Or is that something you do early on to build excitement and enthusiasm inside the business?
So one of the things that I have focused on moving from a RevOps leadership role to a revenue leadership role has been, I want to sell to other people like I like to be sold to. And so what we've been doing, RevOps leaders, directors of RevOps are the ones who typically buy QuotaPath, right? So I've bought tools, not in the commission space in the past, I've done in Excel, but as a RevOps leader, I've bought other tools in the past. And so I know what a good process looks like. And so the points that I really focus on that are unique about the QuotaPath sales process are, we offer a free trial to anybody on our website. So anybody can come through and spin up a trial and they can actually build their own little proof of concept if they want. We have publicly available pricing on the website. And then when you book a demo with an AE. You don't have to go through a bunch of hoops to like get on the phone and see the product. And so with that mentality all in mind, and it's really the mentality of a frictionless, smooth, fast process to validate and see if this could be a good fit for you, we put the POC very early in the process. So we run a first demo. We show you what the functionality looks like. At the end of that call, we say, hey, if it's helpful for you, send over your comp plans and send over some like sample data. We'll build that in QuotaPath to show you what your life in QuotaPath would look like to give you confidence that we're the right partner for you moving forward. And so, yeah, pulling it really early makes it that kind of frictionless process that a RevOps leader can be very excited about.
Awesome. I got two more questions. One is down this line and one is tangential. You mentioned AI in your own sales org. You don't have to look very far to see that AI is popping up in a lot of places, sometimes with great impact and sometimes not. But it's fighting it is like trying to hold back a hurricane with a fishing net. What do you think sales looks like in 5 years, in 2 years? What is salespeople doing all day?
Yeah, and I'm curious in your take on this too. I think I'll give you mine, which is ultimately the goal of AI in a go-to-market process is not to replace humans. It is to make the humans who you have be able to spend more of their time on uniquely human things. So what I think that pans out to is smaller, higher quota per person carrying, higher revenue efficient per person sales orgs that are supported by an army of like GTM agents. And that's kind of the principle that we've taken here. Like, I want to run as small of a team as possible that enables me to hit our number, enables us to hit our number. And so with that team, this is part of the like high quota team requirement and like the goal there overall. What that looks like is a leaner team that is spending the bulk of their time doing those uniquely human things, being on the phone with prospects, walking through business cases, walking through value, talking to other senior leaders to build trust, going on site to talk to people. Because in this rise of agentic selling, trust is actually at a markedly high premium. And so you have to trust the humans that you're buying this thing from, because in a lot of ways, a lot of it may be built by AI. So I have to trust that you're like doing the right things and thinking in the right way. And so I think the future of selling is sellers spending their time on those uniquely human things, specifically phone, face-to-face, that sort of activity, versus doing all of the clicking they have to do in their job today, which isn't uniquely human. What's your take? I'm curious.
I agree with much of what you said, and think about a couple other things. One, I think that pretty soon the hiring process, when the CRO or VP says, do you have any questions for me? I think the candidates will start asking, what tools do you have that I get? So like if you're a marketer, you say, do I get an Adobe license? If you're a sales maker, he's like, am I getting a Salesforce license? Well, yeah, people are going to start showing up and saying, do I get HyperAgent? Do I get Clay? Like, what do you have that is already built? What functions are already handled? They're going to be asking for tokens as part of compensation. And I think that's not just sales. It's going to be like, hey, I want health insurance. I want this base, OTE. And by the way, I need to make sure that I have enough tokens for Claude Max, that kind of thing, right? Because, and I think that the part that's going to be born from, and the shift in how salespeople evolve as human beings is I think salespeople are going to have to be much more systems thinkers than they've ever been asked to be before. Admittedly, I'm a storyteller. I like people. I like to do that function of it. Updating the CRM, that is that has never been my strength. And not to say that I would fail in a future sales environment, but I would certainly have to be a lot more adaptable to say, okay, what are my agents working on under the hood? And what does that free me up to be doing versus me showing up and saying, okay, I'm going to update Salesforce this morning. I'm going to send the emails and now I can start actually talking.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's how do you make the time to do the stuff that you know you should be doing, but you're not? Yeah. And so like if you have a bunch of agents doing a bunch of stuff for you in the background, you're much more free to get on a plane and go fly to a prospect and like take them out to dinner and talk to them about how you're going to work together than if you have to spend all this time updating CRM, which is
I'm thrilled by the idea that there are agents that will do the work that I don't want to do, because I promise you there's a lot of work that I'm supposed to do that I don't want to do. All right, yeah. last question I've got for you, and this is as a chief revenue officer, you understand that when you're doing a marketing touch or sharing something, you're supposed to be giving value. So I'm going to ask you to give some value now. I am stumped almost all the time by the New York Times crossword puzzle. My wife and I sit and we tag team it and still sometimes don't finish the whole thing. What is one tip or two or five? As a person who's actually written crossword puzzles, created crossword puzzles, what are some strategic things that a person like me that struggles with a crossword puzzle can do from the beginning? You know, hey, don't ever put a 0 or an X in the middle square of tic-tac-toe. What are some basic things I can take away that'll help me be better at crossword puzzles?
Okay, it's a great question. I've thought about it a lot. So the easiest thing to think about is how the English language patterns. The most common word in the English language is a consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, 4-letter word. So like past, mark, math, that kind of word, right? And so what that leads to, if you're thinking about it as a constructor, one across is mask, let's say, right? The word below mask then has to fit so that the downs can work. And so the easiest one to put there is a vowel, consonant, vowel, vowel, so that you have consonant, vowel, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel.
Okay.
So what that leads to is a propensity or like a plurality of words in the crossword that are this vowel, consonant, vowel, vowel. So you should get very up and aware with India, Ari, Lake Erie, the Oreo, Epee for fencing. Like there's just a high volume of these words that are crosswordese words that are great fillers for solving the crossword. And
that show up in crossword puzzles disproportionate to how they show up in actual speech.
Yeah, I mean, think about how much you talk about Lake Erie. Lake Erie is in like 1 in every 10 crossword puzzles because it's a beautiful crossword word, right? Its E's and I's are super easy to work with from a vowel perspective. R is a good consonant, and you have the ability to then put mask and Erie. You have ME, you have AR, right? Like you have these downs that are going to be like fine to open for you. So I think if you can have that set of words in your toolkit and like look for those, you'll find that it's much easier to unlock sections.
That is amazing. Ryan Milligan, Chief Revenue Officer at QuotaPath. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Colin, really appreciate it. Enjoyed it.